And so to be on stage and to do a presentation and know the audience is there with you and they're laughing at all the right spots and they're nodding when they see something that they can relate to, and they come up to you afterwards and say, this is happening now with a presentation I'm doing called The Mystery Letter, which talks about bigotry, religious bigotry, and this fabricated war on Jesus that's supposedly happening in the United States. People come up afterwards and they say, I was really encouraged. It felt so good to be able to hear that. And, I feel emboldened. And I could run on those kind of compliments for 6 months. It's tremendously gratifying. And I feel like I'm sort of a steward of the good wishes and the goodwill of the audience. So I always want to make sure that they're getting the bang for their buck. And so I've got 2 or 3 new presentations I'm working on for 2017 and hoping for good things then.
Awesome. I can't wait to see some of those if I'm not in the area. Hope to see them on YouTube.
Yeah, I think the Mystery Letter is going to release in November, sometime around the holidays, I believe. And then the rest of them I'm going to tour with for a while. But they'll ultimately all end up on YouTube.
Okay. Now, I know that you've been in the secular movement quite a bit longer than me because like I said, I deconverted about a year ago. How much has it changed since you first got involved in it? And what are some of the good and the bad things that you've seen within this movement as a whole?
Well, there's a little more polish on it these days. It was pretty rough. It's like conference videos that I would stumble across in 2009. Somebody stuck a camera 200 feet away from the speaker and stuck it in the back of a big hallway and thought that was enough to put on YouTube, where these days we're starting to see that, if you're going to change minds, you're going to have to make people care enough to watch. And that's basic storytelling tools. It's miking your subject, lighting your subject, framing your subject, using multiple cameras whenever you having good instincts in the editing room. We're seeing creative people creating material and content. There's not a lot that's new under the sun. The challenge is there's only so many ways you can say the Noah's flood has been debunked because we've been saying it forever. There's only so many ways you can say that biblical creationism is complete crap. There's only so many ways you can challenge the destructive teachings of Islam. It's all sort of been said. There's nothing new under the sun. For my part, I want my non-belief, my rejection of superstitious ideas to inform how I approach the world. And, my atheism informed, I had to reevaluate almost everything in my life when I emerged from Christianity. It changed how I voted. It changed how I felt about things like drug laws and the death penalty and gay rights and gay marriage, and all these things came into play. I had to go back and just reassess. And that I want to be about helping people and being about better ideas defeating bad ones. I get frustrated with the movement. It's quite often eager to tear itself to pieces. There are some fringes in atheist culture. I call them fringes, many of them very popular, but they don't represent me. They're not certainly not the kind of activism I would have ever wanted to stumble across when I was coming out of the faith. I would have been horrified. This is what atheism is. That's not what I want for me.
Right.
And they're doing a lot of damage out there. They frustrate me. I think we need to be doing a better job as a culture of disagreeing, but also listening and loving each other. And I think that sounds saccharine to many, but I don't think it needs to be. I think we can disagree. We can passionately disagree, but just stop being enemies. Let's stop throwing razor blades at each other, and let's cool our jets, and let's figure it out. And even if we end up disagreeing at the end of the day, we're still on the same side when it comes to defeating damaging religious ideas, and we can still be friends and love each other. And we need a lot of work when it comes to unity. And it doesn't mean groupthink. It doesn't mean we're sheep. It doesn't mean we're religious. It just means that, we can be on the same side in this thing and still be complex individuals.
Right. I think that's something that a lot of folks miss, and maybe part of that is because just about every one of us has come out of some form of a religious upbringing in the past, and so we've still got a little bit of that mindset that, there has to be a right way and a wrong way. Maybe that's one thing where I have an advantage over some in the atheist movement, in that I came out of a couple of very liberal Christian sects, and so that I don't have a problem with the LGBT movement. I never have had a problem with the idea that the creation story is just a metaphor. It's not the real thing, that, and things like that you hear a lot of stories of people that come into the atheist movement, and that's what they were taught to believe early on. And I didn't have that. And so to me, I guess it's kind of hard for me to see why it's such a fight. Why people don't get that it's, why it's such a big battle about just everything within the movement, as far as we need to support this, we need to support that, or we don't need to. You've got, what are some of the acronyms that are thrown out? SJWs versus MRAs. And it's like, no, we don't need to worry about all that. We can fight our own separate battles over here and come together on this atheist part and say that we are for a separation of church and state and be united in that, and still, fight our own battles over on the other side.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. If you say a word that sends somebody into orbit, you say the word feminism, the discourse stops. Mm-hmm. The people automatically start speaking about the extreme ends of the pendulum swing on both sides, and nuance is sacrificed in favor of just vitriol and venom and spit and hate and death and awfulness toward each other. It's just pathetic. I've seen conversation just come to a screeching halt out there, and I think, well, in my own life, I think it's perfectly reasonable that my non-belief in religion and my desire for a rational world informs how I approach issues like equality, be it gender equality or equality among the races, or trying to help people, being a humanist and whatnot. For me, that's a good fit. Doesn't require some other atheist has to be that way or should necessarily. I'm not dogmatic about that. What bothers me, though, is that for those who do feel that way, those who are non-joiners, they're gleefully standing on the sidelines throwing trash at the people out there who are trying to make a difference, or they're painting them with the most toxic extremes of the movement. And the extremes don't represent me. They're not me. They're not about me. You're totally missing the point.
Exactly.
And I think if we can come to a point where we actually start to see and understand and listen and connect and work in good faith toward, understanding each other, work with some empathy, we'd sure go a long way. But empathy on the internet and in the comment section, chat room culture, that's a tough one. That's going to be a tough one to manage.
Well, one other question that I've got here on the list here of things is, do you have any advice for folks that live here in the Bible Belt like us that want to be more actively secular but may be afraid of some of the ramifications that come with coming out as a full-blown atheist? Is there any advice that you have folks out there that might be just kind of on the fence of, do I want to come out or not? How can I be more secular without having a burning cross in my backyard?
Well, this is where some of the firebrands will crucify me, but I think we should be as out as we can be. I think we should be true to ourselves. I think life's too short to sit around keeping other people comfortable. Having said that, I always encourage people, come out when it's right for you. There are some who feel guilty. They feel like they're cowards or that they're cheating by playing their cards close to the chest. Mom and dad are in their 80s. It will do no good if I tell them it's just going to break their heart and ruin the last years of their life that we have together. I buy that. If my employer finds out I could lose my job, I've got a spouse and kids and mortgage and responsibilities, I buy that. And I think it's situational. If you are at a point where you're genuinely looking at significant life consequences, you should not come out until you are ready. And if you're not sure you're ready, good chance you should probably wait, because once that gorilla's out of the cage, it's probably never going back in. Having said that, I think we should all be working, even in a long game, working toward a position in our lives where we can be true to ourselves. Maybe now's the time to be thinking about finding an employment position where it's not going to make that big a difference, if possible. If you're looking at familial consequences, maybe it's time to assess whether or not you're the only one that's worried about keeping other people happy if you're operating with a double standard. Maybe it's time to start putting the puzzle pieces in place. And when the time comes and it's right for you, then be as out and proud as you can possibly be. But my advice is always, we're playing chess, not checkers. Don't beat yourself up because you're not David Silverman, an American atheist out there just banging the drum as loud as you can. He is the head of an atheist organization. You may be working for Joe Blow Jesus over here, who holds your financial future in his hand, and you may need to play a slightly longer game.
Right.
That's my advice for what it's worth.
And I think that's really good advice for folks that you shouldn't feel guilty about not being able to come out totally.
Now, here's a great example. I hosted the thinkingatheist.com anonymously for 2 years as I was navigating my way out, because I worked for a company that served a lot of church clients, and I feared repercussions. I thought I was at the time pushing 40. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to lose my life. So the icon, the thinking person icon with the profile and the supernova, that was what you saw. It took, I think, 2 years maybe a year, a little over, before I even used my first name. It was 2 years, more than 2 years, before I ever showed my face.
Oh, wow.
Now, was I a coward? Sometimes I felt that way. I'm like beating myself up, and I should be. But the reality of it was, I was not in a place where I could survive financially if they pull the rug out from under me. And so I used those 2 years to navigate to a point where I could finally step on stage and say, I'm Seth, I'm an atheist, here I am, here's my name, here's my face. And I hope the same is true for you. Just go at your own pace.
Mm-hmm. Well, my advice would be, don't do like I did and just firebrand come out just as soon as it happens. Okay, just don't do that.
You can be the cautionary tale in this discussion. That's good.
I just want to jump in for a second. That's the whole reason why I have put so much emphasis on our little group having, making a positive effort to give a positive image of non-believers in the community, because I think just if we can create a positive image, even just improve it slightly, it can maybe help a few extra people come out. I think that's going to be a key for a lot of people in the future, to be able to come out with their atheism.
I think you're absolutely right on that. That it is going to take not just the folks coming out and being firebrands, but also, like I was saying earlier, just living a normal life, just being a regular person that just also happens to be an atheist.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, guys, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up here for the evening. So I want to thank you both for coming on and talking with me tonight. Seth, I've got your contact information, or at least your website, thethinkingatheist.com, in the show notes. And I also have the email link, Shane, for your Freethought group over in Mountain Home. So if people want to check into either one of those, feel free to. Also, I want to say for just this one last time that I do have Patreon going on. That's patreon.com/Skeptics Brewpub. Any donations that come in through Patreon up through September 22nd are going to go to Camp Quest, Oklahoma, and anything that goes on from September 27th through September 22nd to October 22nd, I'm going to donate to Skepticon to try to keep that conference going on as well. So if you like the show and you like what you're hearing, go ahead and donate. I'm not going to see a penny of it personally. I'm actually going to go ahead and take that money and donate it to other causes that I think are quite worthy for it. If you want to get a hold of me at the show, skepticsbrewpub@gmail.com. You can also find a link to us on iTunes and Google Play. I'm Brother Brewer, and again, thank you both, Seth and Shane, for coming on tonight.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks for the invitation.
And remember, folks, believe nothing of what you hear, half of what you see, and never have a serious conversation without a 2-drink minimum. Good night, everybody.
Was permanently pissed. John Stuart Mill, of his own free will, on hot water, shiny, particular.